What's going on, guys? Welcome to a new episode of KingBarra. Now, at the end of the last episode, we briefly discussed how we are now working with Dominic from Sunshine Coast Makerspace and Luca from Clueless Creations. Those are the same boys that, if you watch the Skid Factory, you would have seen those boys help the Skid Factory boys out a bit. And it's been really, really awesome to finally sort of have a chat to someone that's keen to help us produce this shifter gate setup that we're trying to develop. So not only someone who's keen to help us develop it and produce it, but have a chat to someone who obviously knows a lot more about the production process, because obviously we know what we want and we can design it and do all the things we want to do to make it happen. But because we don't fully understand or grasp how it's going to be produced or manufactured, obviously there's a lot of things that we miss. It'd be like someone coming to us and telling us they want a 600 horsepower street car that's aspirated without sort of understanding the I suppose the implications that come with trying to make that much power out of an aspirated car and how hard it is or undrivable it becomes, sort of thing. That's sort of the best way I could make it relatable to someone like us. So, you know, we know what we want this thing to do, and we can 3D design it and do all that, but without understanding how the production process is going to go with how it's going to be manufactured, there are things that we need to revisit now. So at least though it's progress, it means we're almost back to the drawing board with this development, and we got to sort of redesign it a lot to suit the way we now know it's going to have to be manufactured. But at least it means we're actually getting somewhere with it, which is freaking great. So I'm here with the shifter, with the column and everything, with our prototypes and stuff, trying to figure out the best way to go forward, and how we're going to sort of get this to work properly. Like this bracket from Locar, out of that entire Locar kit that we ended up buying, pretty much this bracket is almost the only thing we ended up using, and a cable. So a cable could be generic, you could get any cable place to make a cable, and this bracket we actually had to modify to suit this column anyway, because they're actually a different size to any of the American GM style columns. So we talked about it, if we were to develop this into an actual kit and sell it off the shelf, what we'd probably end up doing is actually getting this bracket 3D scanned and stuff as well, with the correct size center for this column, and sort of do the whole kit all together. Instead of having to, you know, selling a kit where it's like, hey, you buy this kit, but you also have to buy the Locar kit and modify that and put it together, we were like, well, we may as well just bring out the whole kit all as one. But anyway, that's further down the road, that's a later thing. But yeah, so we're doing a lot of modifications to this piece now. There's going to be a bit more prototyping, a bit more 3D printing. Again, it's a long process and it's frustrating, and this whole idea has ended up costing way more time than I had anticipated at the beginning. But like we keep talking about, it's going to make a column shift car that's pretty serious and got a lot of power. It's going to make it so much better and nicer to drive, and safer is the main thing. A lot safer. So anyway, we're working towards this. Back to Fusion, back to redesigning and doing a few things and trying to work with these boys. But yeah, I can't express how much it is a relief, because honestly, this has been such a big roadblock just in my own head, trying to figure out how we're actually going to get this done, when we had so many bum steers, so many people fob us off, and it just felt like we'd wasted so much time trying to get anywhere with it. So it is so nice to know that we're on the right track now. We have some people that are actually keen to work with us and get it done. Not only that, but things like I talked about at the end of the last episode, things like the grill, actually 3D scanning and producing a grill that's going to fit rather than cutting up a grill and trying to plastic weld. There's just so many implications for what those boys can do that is going to help us so much with this project and other projects to come in future. So definitely head over and give those boys a follow, both of them. Really switched on, really excited to be working with them. So let's get it. Rightio guys, so this is sort of what our latest revision, or what my latest revision looks like. Obviously it's not very nice looking, but at this stage I'm more so wanting to confirm dimensions, and I believe that both Luca and Dominic will probably have their own input to put into the design for the actual manufacturing process. But for now, just prototyping to ensure that the dimensions, the critical dimensions, are correct. So I've already got some on 3D printing this for us, so we should know just after the weekend, and then we'll take this to the boys, and as long as it's dimensionally fine, we'll get it happening, which is yeah, looking forward to it. Few little changes, but important ones nonetheless. Righto, boys and girls, we've got our latest prototype back from 3D printing. As you can see, I've had to make it a little bit larger, the way this pin was actually working. Like, yeah, actually fitting this onto this column and trying to use it, there are a lot of problems. So anyway, Try to make it a little bit bigger to account for that. It fits really, really well on the column. It fits much better than the old prototype. Just gotta get it in there. But, oops, sorry, pointing the camera at the ground while I'm too busy trying to watch what I'm doing. Anyway, so it fits the column much better, as you can see. It doesn't interfere with our bracket, and it still obviously has enough room for our cable bracket. This is the bracket that actually holds the cable. And if we have to, we can actually offset that. There's no reason we can't offset that. And then the pin might just have to be offset back a bit to actually make it to the maze properly. But I'm hoping that a little bit of extra size, this pin should actually fit all the way up into there when it goes into park instead of hitting the edge of the design, which I've still got to check. But yeah, can't do that holding the camera because I need two hands. So it fits really well on the column. So it's time to get the column back in the car because the other big thing was obviously, does it fit around the dump pipe and all the other things that has to be in this area of the firewall. But I'm pretty confident it's going to be still pretty right because it's still offset back about the same as that one. So that was the big one with this prototype. The re-prototype was the offset back, and I'm pretty sure this one I ended up with more offset. But you can see the big difference. The bends on this one are straight instead of angled, and that is because obviously talking to the guys that actually know the the production process of this sort of part, it's going to be much easier to laser cut and bend if the bends are straight instead of obviously curved like that is. But obviously at this time we're expecting it to just be completely CNC'd out of one piece of billet, which obviously still would have been quite expensive to get a piece of billet that big. So it is nice that we're going down a bit of a cheaper road for production as well. But yeah, this should work with the production method. And like I said, it fits pretty well. So this is hopefully going to be our final prototype. We just need to get this column in the car, make sure everything fits around it, and we should be on the road to production, which is freaking sick to finally happen, because I tell you what, it has been a long road. I'm starting to obviously accept the fact that we're never going to make our money back for how many hours we put into this kit. So if anyone wants to buy one, I hope you know that it's a lot of love involved, because we'd have to sell so many kits to make this sort of money back, I think. And I'm just not sure if the demand for mazed gated column shifters for H series is going to be that high. But hey, who knows? There might be a lot of people that really like the idea of going back to 6 seats if they can have a column shift. So could work out. I don't know. We'll see. All right, guys. So time to get the steering column in. In the last episode, we did talk about, or I did talk about having to take the engine back out to switch over the timing chain tensioner. Now, I've spoken to these same people that obviously have given me this sort of advice, who are very, very well versed in Barras, and it comes from some people at Real Dyno there on the north side of Brisbane, and they specialise in these things. I work with them every day. They know what they're doing. So for anyone who knows Barras, they know that they are renowned for the flex plate bolts rattling loose and or snapping, causing a lot of problems. So when we got that flex plate, instead of using the ARP bolts we had on the shelf, we opted to use the bolts that came with the flex plate because they were the correct length. Because obviously the billet flex plates are much thicker than the stock ones. But the other thing is Golby's actually sell a backing plate, or a plate that you can put on before the bolts go in to the flex plate, so that you can just put a tack weld on the head of each bolt. And this obviously stops them from then eventually rattling loose and causing problems. So while the engine's out, again, I'm just gonna opt to do that because I want it done right the first time. Once this engine goes back in with our timing tensioner swapped over, I do not want to have to pull this thing back out. So I want to avoid that at all costs. I thought maybe that using the bolts that were supplied with it would help with it, but from what I've been told, it doesn't really make much difference. They still will rattle loose. It's just what they do. Don't know why. And it's not just these ones, it is all brands apparently. So anyway, we will do that while it's out too, get it all done. The other thing is obviously if this works out, we've got to get it in the car. But as long as this works, we then get the opportunity to actually set this up without the engine in the car, which may or may not be a great advantage, but we'll find out. Anyway, we'll get this in the car and see how it looks. Righto guys, you're about to get a bit of a wet dream sneak peek at what this is going to look like, but friggin' hell, I'm excited to actually get this thing together. It's going to be so sick when it's all finished. I'm so freaking excited. Anyway, moving on to our shifter gate. So our new prototype works. We now have room for the pin in the edges to get it all the way to park, which is good. And we have clearance for the dump pipe and everything else, which is also good. But what we found is, because of where it's all ended up, actually having it secured on the column, and where this piece is, which I thought was a bit further down, you can see we've had to space that out, because it's all right there, that's with the column pulled up, but once you push it back, see, it hits on the piece. So it means you have to space that out, and that can be a problem, because obviously with the cable at this end operating off that bracket, it sort of relies on the friction of these two pieces so that it doesn't just do this when you operate the cable. So having a spacer or anything in there, I feel like is going to be a little bit of a detriment, and be a really hard thing to actually get right and keep stable. So what I've figured we should probably do is, you can see there's actually enough room before it hits that thing on the firewall to move this bracket that holds the cable back. We could probably get it moved back around 5 mil. And what that would do would allow us to move, it's really hard to get in here with the camera, this edge here that holds, I'll show you when I take it out actually, it's going to be easier. But basically this side of the piece, which I've made skinny to obviously account for where this bracket is, and also the operation of this on the column, probably the easiest thing for us to do is to move this back 4 mil, and then I can actually re-prototype this with that side the same thickness but just moved back 5 mil. And it sort of helps twofold in the design, I believe, because the way it is, you can see that edge there where my finger is, it comes up and it's still on the maze, and it creates a very thin point in the piece. So you can see where that's broken, the 3D, it's that thin that it's allowed that to break. So if that's moved back 5 mil along with this bracket, it sort of covers that a lot better as well. So that way everything's on well, that edge is all moved back 5 mil. This is moved back 5 mil. We don't have to space this bracket that holds the cable back, and that can be mounted all, you know, straight directly to that piece on the column, which gives it that friction that we need for it to actually operate a lot better. And then we just got to space the pin back accordingly to suit the maze. But essentially the critical dimensions of the piece, where it mounts, where the maze is, they all stay the same. Just that edge moves back 5 mil and this moves back 5 mil. But yeah, apart from that, it's all going to work and fit just. It's not going to, this is not going to bother us too much as far as temperature relation goes, because this will all be made out of alloy and steel and stuff that's temperature resistant or used to temperature. But just look how freaking good it looks though. It makes me so want to just dummy up everything else, like turbo front, intake. I've got the injector spacers and new spacers from Raceworks for spacing the fuel rail out, so we'll try and get that right. I bought a few different sizes just to make sure that we get it right, and hopefully that allows us to run that fuel rail without interfering with our thermostat housing too much. But we'll get that on and see. But it makes me really want to dummy up all that stuff, but it takes so much time. It's time that I'm not going to get back, and I can't afford to be wasting time on that at the moment. So anyway, this is in so that we can make sure this is right. But yeah, I think I will prototype this again with that little bit of a change, which obviously is going to cost us another few days, but it is what it is. It's important to get it right, otherwise it won't work. And if it doesn't work, it's all wasted time. So we'll get that sorted. So this here's what I mean. You can see how I've spaced this back and made this skinny to make room for the bracket that holds the cable. But if we can move that bracket back 4 or 5 mil, I can afford to move this whole lot back 4 or 5 mil, which should hopefully give us enough room on the front side to run our bracket for the actual cable end on the right on that piece off the column, instead of having to space it off. So we'll do that, prototype that, and hopefully that will be the last prototype. Even though that one obviously hasn't quite worked, the re-prototype is only a slight revision to it. I've already sent a copy of that to Dominic at Sunshine Coast Makerspace, just to ask him essentially what he thinks about that design for manufacture. I've tried to do sort of everything that we talked about when we went for that meeting, and hopefully he comes back with a yes, and that way we just move that bit back a little bit and then we're good to go for production. Fingers crossed. Rightio guys, so we've got ourselves our revision. I went to do this yesterday afternoon and I realized how smart I was in that when I designed this new piece, I knew that the cut was going to be potentially, you know, not going to work. So I actually saved a version of it prior to the cut, which is awesome. So yay me, although I'm sure if I knew more about this program, I'm sure there would be ways to actually go to that first iteration and go back before the cuts and then go from there. I'm sure there would be a way, but obviously I'm still sort of teaching myself this program, and it's obviously a lot to learn on top of everything else I'm trying to do. But anyway, so you can see I actually had that to start with, which was really, really handy. I didn't have to do too much, but you can see the difference in the two cuts. So, try and line that up. All right, so that's the difference. So that was our first cut there. You can see how that is, and that's the one that we needed to revise. And then that's the second cut with it moved back that 5mm-ish. So I then actually cleaned it up a fair bit. So this was actually the final one. I've just cleaned up the sharp edges a bit and made it a bit nicer. So that is printing at the moment, but got here this morning and actually just decided to order a freaking 3D printer. There are still so many things on this car that we want to 3D print. Things like the air conditioning controls. I still want to try and have a go at doing something with the IC7 that's 3D printed if we have time. I'm not going to let it hold up the build, but if I get time and we can do that, that'll be awesome, rather than mount it on the column. So with all these things that we want to 3D print, I was like, screw it, we're just going to buy a 3D printer. You know, now I've got to wait for this to get printed, go get it, see if it fits. Whereas, you know, if I had the 3D printer, I could have had this done yesterday, printing overnight. I could have got here this morning and been testing it right now, and it would have been, I would have known. So it just is going to speed up this process of prototyping so much faster if we've got our own 3D printer. So that's what I've done, and it's on the way. So that's awesome, that's exciting. All right guys, how bloody exciting. We finally have our very own 3D printer. This is going to speed up this process so much. We should have done this so long ago. We just sort of never had the spare money, I guess. Although realistically, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I got nothing to say. It just, holy crap, it's so much handy having our own now, so that we don't have to wait and prototype, send it away, be printed, wait for it, blah, blah, blah. We can do it in-house overnight. And this actually took a lot longer to set up and get tuned in than I expected. I still have a fair bit of tuning in to do, but we've got our first successful print of our freshest prototype done right here in-house. Now I can test it, make revisions, print again. I mean, crap, I could test this now if I need to make a revision, print another one, and test fit it again this afternoon. How freaking good. So anyway, obviously not looking to set the world on fire with our 3D printing and stuff like that, but for us to just prototyping, this printer's pretty good. And obviously in the engine room here, it's nice and protected from the elements, out of the humidity, out of the dust. We've got to sell the 3D frickin' printer. What a time. Righto guys, so we finally got a chance to fit our latest revision that was printed right here in-house. What a time. And she's awesome. About all I'm going to do is probably shave another 1 or 2 mil off the front face of that cut. But apart from that, the dimensions are really good. It all works. It's sort of just, this bracket just rides on the edge of that when it's all the way back. So if I just shave like another 2 mil off that front side, we should be out of trouble there. And there's still plenty of room to have the bracket, the actual bracket for the cable holder at the back there. So we're pretty much good to go. So there you go guys, that's the evolution of the prototyping. And it's just that face I want to shave about 2 mil off. But we're into production. You. All right guys, sorry I'm sick as a dog, but try and get through this. Little update on what's going on with our fuel rail. Ended up dummying up the whole intake. So now you get to see a pretty big dummy up of what's going on. How good does it frickin' look? It looks so good. So excited. As we speak, Rex is on the way down to our boys there at Sunshine Coast Makerspace. We have finished our prototyping. We did end up 3D printing one more, but it's prototyped. I've sent the file to Dominic there at Sunshine Coast Makerspace. He's modified it to basically be better for production, or the way we want to do our production process. So Rex has gone down there today to talk to Dominic about that, drop the grill off to Luca there at Clueless Creation so that he can start 3D screening the grill, and we can start getting that sorted. So that's on the way. So hopefully sometime in the next week or two, we actually have our first production shifter gate to try and test fit onto this thing, which is super, super exciting. So that's a huge leap forward and a huge step forward for this project. Yeah, can't tell you how excited we are for that. for that to be happening. I still haven't pulled this motor back out quite yet. I do have our brand new Ford OEM tensioner here, and still got to pull it out and put that tensioner on and do the flex plate bolts, but just not feeling up to it today. Too freaking sick. So we dropped the car down so I can go on with the next big headache at the moment, which is our fuel rail setup, which we've talked about, how it's problematic. So the good news is with our full length injector extensions, bringing the rail out to full length, we will easily be able to just get a block off port in the end of that fuel rail and run it deadhead, and that's how it's going to be run, and it's going to work. So that's awesome. That's a good start. But as I talked about, didn't actually get any of the posts with this rail, and sort of tried to make do with what we had left over from previous installs with other fuel rails, but they're all too short. So what I did was Raceworks actually sell fuel rail posts separately. You can just buy them, and they make a few different lengths, and I got what I thought would be right, and I got two 55mm fuel rail posts, which is the right length. That's the length we need, which is awesome. What you'll notice about this is that it comes with a freaking M6 bolt. It's for M6, and this obviously requires an M8. Not only that, but it's confusing because all of the Raceworks rails that I've ever used for RBs and stuff all come with M8 hardware, so I'm confused as to why they sell these in M6 only. But obviously, this isn't gonna freaking work unless we drill that out to M8 and find our own bolt, which may be a little bit harder said than done. So it's very frustrating, these sorts of headaches, like just such a simple thing, just causing so many freaking headaches, makes me want to hit my head against a freaking brick wall. So anyway, I'm gonna have to sort out something about that. I'm not sure whether in the center of that post, there's actually enough material if we drill that out to M8 for that's gonna even work. So maybe just be a matter of finding a different supplier to get a fuel post, rail post from that's the right length and the right size. But just can't believe how long this drags things out and how frustrating it is. But at the very least, it's going to work, which is awesome because it does look great. It really does look awesome, having this all sort of starting to come together. So fuel rail with our full injector extensions, it's going to be awesome. Yeehaw, how good. I can't wait to get this thing together for the final time. All right, guys, here we are. This is where we're at. Still pretty sick, but recovering. Sucks to have to go through this and double work it, but I'm confident that's the right thing to do. We've got our OEM tensioner in here now, and I've cleaned all the surface up, so time to clean the front cover up now and put it back on, and then give it another fresh liquor coat of paint, and then it's ready to go back on the crane. Once it's back on the crane, we can then reinstall our flex plate, and this time tack the bolt heads to the flex plate to make sure that they're not going to come loose at all, which is just a common issue with Barras. As much as it sucks, like I said, to pretty much lose a day having to rework this, I'd rather do it now than have to pull it back out after it's all completed, because that would take even longer and be even more of a pain in the ass. And I'm confident it's the right thing to do to make sure we don't have any issues, because they do have renowned issues, which we are trying to see to. So anyway, we're halfway there. While this has been out, Rex has removed the steering box. Power steering box has been removed. It's had a good big cleanup. Rex has given it a coat of paint out there. So a fresh coat of paint for the steering box. Just starting to get things back together. Rex has got our wiper motor in the cowl, so that's all installed. He sorted out the wiring and run it out to here. So that's our wiring for our hidden wiper motor that's on the back side. You can see what that plate looks like all installed. Painted the same color as the firewall. Bloody beautiful looking grouse. So anyway, it's nice to be finally making some sick progress. Bo's been smashed along with some of our other work. So yeah, it's working out really, really well, this dynamic, and having an extra person in the workshop is just working out absolutely wicked. So the plan obviously with this whole deal is that we can leave Bo to be doing this sort of thing while we get stuck in and finally are able to finish things like this without having to worry about the smaller ones coming through. So yeah, big help. It's been awesome. Anyway, keep moving along with this and get it back together. And I'm excited to be putting it back in the car again for the actual last time, not like the fake last time, which was a fake last time because it had to come back out. But this time it's going to be a real last time install where hopefully, fingers crossed, it doesn't have to come out for any other reason again. And we can just start doing what we've been trying to get to and just start to finish building and installing and doing everything around the engine that needs to be done. Rightio, so just redoing some paint touch-ups now that it's all back together. We've actually moved this cover, left the bolts out and moved it as far back as I can to try and get as much of that lip as I can so we don't have that little exposed bit of silver when the actual proper cover goes on this time. So hopefully that sorts that out, but glad that's finally done and over with.
can sleep at night now knowing that we should not have to open this motor again. It should be good. But we have decided that while it's out, there are a few things we decided to do. The sandwich plate that I clearanced in the last episode, actually, while it was on here, I marked it before I took it back off so that I can actually clearance the sandwich plate all the way in so that it's flush with the block here. Gives us just a little bit more room for our torque converter bolts, which might make things a little bit easier for us in future. So we'll sort that out. There's a few things though, while the engine's out, we've decided just to leave it out until we get a few more things sorted on the car. It wasn't going to be a big deal. A lot of stuff we had to get sorted on this firewall. But seeing as the motor had to come back out anyway, there's no mad advantage to getting it back in because we already know what clearances we were working with for our shifter gate, and it's already in production. So we achieved what we needed to get the motor in to get that sorted out. And seeing as it had to come out anyway again, we may as well use this opportunity with nothing in here to sort out everything in the firewall we really want to sort out. So we want to change all these screws that were for the plate that goes over where the fan box used to be. Going to change all them out for M5 nutsert so that we can use M5 button head bolts. It's just going to make things a lot easier, a lot more serviceable, and a lot neater. And obviously doing that while the engine's out is going to be a big advantage. The other thing is obviously once we get our production shifter gate unit, if we can have no engine in here to sort out all of our cable lengths and all that sort of thing, it's going to make that a bit of a easier thing as well. But mind you, obviously, if we don't have our production model by the time we're ready to put the engine in, we're not going to hold up. We're not going to hold up the project to do that. But in the case that it does get here next week, it will be handy to not have the engine in to sort that out too. So as you can see, Rex got our power steering box back in here. It's all painted up beautiful, looking real nice. We've also finally dropped the orange sway bar out. It's out ready to get painted up too. So yeah, moving along with this thing, we're just starting to look at our new brake booster and master. We also realised, having a closer look at the air conditioning stuff that came with the vintage air kit, is that the bulkheads for the AC lines, they're not actually just a bulkhead on their own. They're actually a bulkhead that's part of one side of the fitting, which means probably on the inside we're going to have to terminate those lines and start there, because that's what's going to determine where the bulkheads are from the inside. So we'll start getting that sorted as well. That way we can start getting all of our lines for AC sorted on here, and this guard can go back on so that we can get our surge tank sorted. So you can see here how much more of this sandwich plate I can actually take out to give us that extra room for our converter bolts. So we'll do that while it's out too. Oh, look at that, the iconic orange sway bars, no more. Just black now, suit the rest of the black. Black, black, black. So Rex is smacking out some progress on this thing. As you can see, our bulkhead fittings in the firewall getting sorted out. Rex has been sorting them out on the inside, and that's pretty much how they're going to be running. So those are for our heater, and those are for our AC, obviously, and that they're all hidden inside the inner guard, and the lines will be hidden too. So it's going to look skits. So obviously it's never a great thing that projects drag on the way this project has dragged on, but there are some silver linings, and one of those is that obviously at the start of this project we had no idea how to do AC lines. We didn't do anything. We didn't have anything to do with AC lines. We couldn't do them in-house.
It seemed a lot scary back then, and now I've started doing it. I was like, I don't know what.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's so simple, but we didn't have the tools, we didn't have the suppliers or the means or know how to do it. So, you know, when we first started this and we were looking at that vintage air kit, which as we've talked about when we installed it is obviously not particularly built for a right-hand drive car, you know, there's only a limited selection of fittings that they send and hose, and we were trying to figure out how we're going to make it do it right and make it neat and all that sort of thing. And obviously now we do completely bespoke ones in-house, and you know, these 45s, we didn't have any of that with the vintage air kit, but having the 45s is the perfect angle to run them inside the guard and have them not interfere with anything and have like everything completely hidden. So the silver linings is that we can do a lot more, and we're a lot better at a lot of things now than we were when we first started. So that's the little silver lining which I'll take as far as projects that drag out. Apart from that, there's not really anything good about projects that drag out. Righto guys, Rex been cracking along with this while I've been sorting this out because Bo had the day off today, so I keep going with that. Rex kept smacking this along. As you can see, we're all nut-certed everywhere now. This was much easier to do with the engine out. That's going to make things just a lot nicer and easier to work with. A lot more serviceable for future.
Yeah, it needs, just neatens up the engine bay.
Yep.
They're using all like your button head bolts, just makes everything nice and neat. That's our under dash. Well, sorry, not under dash, but hidden wiper.
Yeah, so that's wired up now. Rex finished wiring that up today.
Yeah, I hope that's wired up. I'm only guessing.
We hope it's right. And
yeah, I think it's right. We won't know until we actually power up the car and start testing a few things. But I think it's right.
I'm pretty sure we explained in a previous episode as well, but all this standard original HQ wiring, there's plenty of room in a guard to actually just poke it up there out of the way. So none of that's going to be removed. A big thing about this whole build is so many people have been so angered about us putting this Ford in a Holden,
which to us is just nuts, considering like a LS or a Chev are both American-based engines, whereas the Barra, even though it's a Ford, at least it's an Australian designed and built engine. So we're swapping out an Aussie 6 for an Aussie 6. To us, that's more patriotic, I suppose you'd call it, and probably less sacrilegious than putting an American engine in this car. But hey, each to their own. But the fact is, aside from this cut on the crossmember, which will be engineered and is not that much at all, everything else that we're doing to this car can easily be reversed. If someone bought this car and they decided, hey, I want to put a 186 back in this thing, that wiring's still going to be there hidden. None of this has changed. The engine mounts and the crossmember and everything are the same. It's literally just a matter of pulling all this stuff out and putting a 186 back in. So none of the modifications that we're doing are irreversible. And part of that is this wiring that's already existing is just going to be tucked away in the inner guard, completely hidden so you can't see it, but it will be there for if for whatever reason someone decided they want to do that. But trust me when I tell you, the owner is not going through all this effort and money and time to build this car to be worth more money. This is really just what he wants to do with the car. Plus, a lot of it is what we want to do with the car, which is honestly why it's dragged on so much. So, anyway, I'm not going to go into that, but it's coming along awesome. Rightio, guys. So, we're back together. Welded, just a little tack weld, something that's easy to grind off. Just tap it with a grinder and get it undone for if you do, you know, in future actually intentionally want to take the flex plate off and get this thing apart. But it should be enough to stop these from ever rattling loose. That being said, even with the red Loctite, just to get this flex plate off, they were actually pretty hard to get out. So I am dubious as to whether they ever would have come loose anyway, but at least now we know that they're not going to. We're not going to have this issue that so many people do seem to have. And this motor can go back in the freaking car again, this time for the last time. But firstly, just going to give these a quick lick of paint, make sure they don't rust over the years that it's going to be in the car and cause problems. So quick bit of paint just to seal them up, and then this thing can go back in the car. Yee-haw, it's about time. Rightio, we've got a Barra back in the hole for the last time. The last time, not coming back out. We also got legit bell housing bolts. Rex ordered the right bell housing bolts, the right length, right heads and everything like that. So we've got everything here to actually just freaking smash this thing through and actually just get it done, which has been about 2 years coming. So yee-haw, really exciting stuff. Clean as a bean. All our nutserts and the firewall and everything are done. Oh, so good. So I've been holding out on releasing this episode that you're watching right now, which has been filmed over the past couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, because I've been waiting for, I really wanted to have our production shifter gate piece for this episode, just because it's something that we've been talking about and prototyping so much in the past few episodes. It would have been really nice to actually have the piece to show you in this episode, but we still don't have it. I'm not sure how far away it is. I've got to go down and have another meeting with the boys probably next week. So anyway, it is what it is. I'm not going to hold up the episode or hold up putting the content out just for the sake of waiting for it, but it's on the freaking way, which is wicked. They're starting on the grill, which is good. So for those of you who know, HQ Grill has chrome around the outside, like chrome stripping. We've got a couple of grills up here, I'll show you. So I'll show you here. So you can see around the outside they have chrome stripping. Now to get this stripping off without breaking it is pretty much impossible, but you can replace the stripping. You can buy it brand new from Rare Spares for about 140 bucks for a set of the strips. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna get Luca down at Clueless Creations to scan the grill we sent down to him complete first. And then I'm gonna get him to pull that chrome stripping off, or I'll do it when I go down there next week, I'll pull it off for him. And scan the grill without that chrome stripping with all of the provisions to attach some chrome stripping. So that way, because you know, a lot of people have HQs that are turboed, turbo LS. Not many people have turbo Barra ones, but the fact is a lot of people have turbo ones where you have to have an intercooler and you need this sort of modified grill to work. So we figure there's probably a bit of a market for this grill. Now, what this means is that we'll be able to offer the grill as a complete one piece, ready for sand and paint, and it would just be, you know, you paint it to color code, whatever. Or we can offer them a grill that they can sand and paint and then buy the replacement chrome strip from Rare Spares and just put that on the grill as well. And that way it can be, you know, complete HQ with the chrome. So unfortunately it means that the grill that we've sent down, it's probably going to sacrifice the stripping off it because it's probably going to break it ripping it off, but we can just replace that for Adam here, the owner of this car. We can buy him a new set of chrome stripping for that grill and replace that chrome stripping, and not that he can use it with this car anyway, but he might want to keep it for if he ever reverts this car, or maybe he wants to sell it, I don't know. But either way, that will be coming to market. We are going to try and offer that as something that other people can buy, so that we can, you know, like we said, I think there's a fair bit of a market for it. There's a few people that we know personally already that have HQs that have intercoolers that can't fit a standard grill, and they've got, you know, sides of the grill cut out and there's half a grill, or it's messy. So if we can offer this as a product that people can buy, I think there'll be a market for it, which would be awesome. So anyway, if you're watching this and you've got a HQ, get onto us if you want one of those grills. But yeah, anyway, hopefully we'll have a Shifty-Gate thing very soon. The plan is to try and have this running next week. I want to try and get it started next week. That's the plan. So yeah, still gunning to have this thing tuned and ready for road tripping by Easter. Anyway, that's an episode. Thanks for watching, guys. Now that this is in for the final time, I'm pretty sure I've said this 3 or 4 times now, but it's going to be full steam ahead now that this is in for the final time. But I mean it, as in that flex plate's done, bolts are welded, our timing chain tensioner issue is sorted, the motor's painted back in there, completed, and it doesn't have to come back out as far as we can foresee. So it's time to just start smacking this together, and we're freaking looking forward to it. I can't tell you how much. Thanks for watching as always, guys. Make sure you smash like, hit subscribe so you don't miss anything. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching. Peace out. See you. Bye.